Hello Varlets. Today I wanted to find out how impactful the changes to the LASGUNS actually were. We'll not only be examining what those changes in the patch notes actually translate into, but also if the LASGUNS as a whole weapon class is more usable now. So let's get it on. Just so everyone is on the same page, I'm going to paste the changes that the LASGUNS received here so you can see for yourself what actually was buffed. Now, to save you the time and effort of trying to make head or tail of what these changes do, I've translated them into understandable numbers in this table here, and we're going to take a look through each row to see what is impactful and what isn't. Hopefully you can see the numbers on this table clearly. Starting from the top, which are the ammo magazine size changes. Before I put everything down on my table and translated them, I thought the magazine changes were good. Yeah, turns out this change is next to insignificant because the amount of ammo you actually get is literally between 2 to 4 units. And I'll have you remember that LASGUNS use between 2 to 3 units per shot as noted below. That means at best, the Mark 7 and 2B get 1 extra shot, while for some reason the Mark 9 doesn't even get enough ammo to make an extra shot despite having the same magazine size as the Mark 7. Given how minute these changes are, I wonder what was the intent behind the adjustment. I guess the main benefit is that non-maxed out LASGUNS would have a slightly better mag size, but even then, it doesn't feel impactful at all. Anyway, moving on to the next change, all LASGUNS got a pretty substantial improvement to their maximum ammo count. The Mark 7 got a sizable 20% increase, while the 2B and 9 got a 16 and 17% increase respectively. The result of these changes is that all LASGUNS effectively get an extra full mag and then some, give or take, giving the weapons a better total damage potential that can actually make a difference. This is also an indirect buff when paired with the Veteran's Survivalist aura since it's based on your total ammo, allowing LASGUNS to have a better sustain whenever you have this aura around. By the same token, this also means other classes can make more use of the LASGUN without starving for ammo for a little longer. A more tangible and welcome change compared to the ammo magazine one. Next, we have changes to the Unyielding ADM for the Mark 7 and 2B. The Mark 9 did not receive any changes in this regard. How impactful were these changes? Well, on paper, the near ADM got a pretty good bump, jumping from 0.6 to 0.75, which represents a 25% increase. The far ADM, however, got a smaller boost from 0.75 to 0.8, or a roughly 6.7% increase. However, remember that LASGUNS have reverse damage fall-off. They hit harder the further away enemies are. So this change might seem slight, but it's actually more impactful given how LASGUNS function. One of the more impactful changes, even on paper, is the change to the 2B's recoil. I've only listed the recoil while shooting here since it was the one that I was most interested in. What we got was a reduction from 1.25 down to 0.85, which represents a sizable 32% reduction in recoil. I'm going to show you on screen the difference between a before and after since I was curious about how big of a deal it would be after the patch dropped. What we have is a very big improvement to the control of the 2B, allowing you to stay on target much better even when going full auto. This makes the weapon feel a great deal better to use since now you won't be hamstringing your DPS while trying to make the most of your fire rate. Lastly is an increase to the girth or radius of the last fire, making the hitbox bigger so it's more forgiving when firing close to the target. It's hard to tell how big of an improvement plus 0.03 is when the base number is unknown. I've done some comparative testing and I can't definitely say that the improvement is tangible, but it is technically a buff, so I'll take it. Anything to make the LASGUNS feel better to use as one of Warhammer40k's iconic weapons is always welcome. So overall, I'd give these changes a grade of maybe between B or B-. There was some good stuff in there, but a couple of inconsequential changes which wound up either doing nothing or next to it. Oh, and as far as the efficiency blessing goes, it now makes it so that the unit cost of each shot for all LASGUNS is 1. So long as you fire at a cadence of once every 0.5 seconds or so, you effectively almost triple the size of your magazine, making ammo a non-issue. The problem with this is that efficiency is competing against other blessings that offer more tangible impact apart from the improved ammo economy, which has already been addressed by the increase in maximum ammo as well. So, good improvement to the blessing itself, but I don't see it as being useful considering other options. Now, let's talk about the practical applications and how it feels to use them after the patch. I've been actually enjoying using the LASGUNS a lot, especially the Mark 7 and 2B in my expedition runs. The openness and availability of high ground gives a place for these weapons to perform rather than being confined into the often close quarters of our usual maps. The fact that these sites of interest are often tall and offer a towering view over the area gives these weapons the opportunity to snipe, something that feels especially fun to do. Really makes you feel how these weapons should be performing. I was even glad to see that I was on a team with another lasgun user and a recon user in the wild. At times, it almost felt like this specific scene where we are blasting las fire against invading heretic forces. I also brought it into regular missions to see if its performance there, especially the Mark IIb, warranted being brought into the bigger leagues like Havoc. While it did well in Damnation, Auric and even Auric Maelstrom, the sheer horde density and tankiness of enemies on Havoc often made the lasguns feel a little anemic. Now that being said, its deeper ammo pool helps compensate for the fact that you're going to need more shots to bring things down. But it also means that for enemies that don't really have their health changed, like shooters, you have more ammo to throw at them. However, if you have a decent team that can hold a front line and you yourself can manage in melee well, the lasguns can work as a pretty good anti-shooter weapon that performs best at range and does alright in closer engagements. The one thing I haven't talked about a lot in this review is the Mark IX. I feel like this weapon has been left in the dust, which is a shame considering it was the meta weapon back when Darktide first launched. I think, compared to the Mark 7 and 2B, the 9 suffers from a slower fire rate, which makes missing feel bad, and precision damage that doesn't feel as rewarding when you do land them, relative to the other two Marks. See, one of the main reasons why many people like the 7 and the 2B over the 9 is that the former two Marks can shift into an assault rifle of sorts if need be if you end up in a close engagement. The much faster firing rate gives you a fighting chance to shoot your way out of a brawl and maybe mow down some light chaff rushing at you. The 9 can't do this as effectively and suffers a lot more from being closed in and rushed at. What it does pretty good is sometimes one-shotting critical targets like specials and gunners. If I were to suggest a buff for it to give it a reason to exist, I'd lean more into its strength as a superior ranged lasgun compared to the other two, more so than just a Mark 7 that fires a little slower and hits a little harder. First, I would increase its ammo unit cost per shot from 3 to 4 or maybe even 5, and then also increase its damage from 289 to 385 to match its unit cost damage ratio. I would then also consider giving it a higher base crit chance compared to the other two, maybe increasing it by 5 or even 10%. Then I might consider increasing its weak spot multiplier by about maybe 30% across the board, to lean into the fact that this is a precision weapon. These changes, at least on paper, give it a much more distinct identity away from the Mark 7 and 2B rather than just a marginal stat difference. Its weakness is still going to be carapace, which lasguns are ineffective against anyway, but at least now, when it comes to clearing shooters and specials from afar, the Mark 9 can hold an unmatched position that rewards being able to aim with measure. Anyway, these are just my paper thoughts after playing with all the lasguns since the buffs. I'm really enjoying the changes and I'm glad that Fat Shark is at least looking at some of the least used weapons and bringing them up to par, even though I felt some of the changes did miss the mark. I look forward to seeing more, so thank you all for watching and I will see you in the next one. Varlets.